Another one of the reasons I really wanted to kind of catch up with you again is that around about this time you were planning to be up in Scotland, and we kind of tentatively talked about getting together and stuff. So I thought we'd do it virtually.
Oh yes.
So this is what you're missing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that looks nice. Where is that? Is that? Oh no, don't tell me.
It's a loch in the northwest of Scotland under very deep water when the water was super high.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we've had a very, very wet autumn, so it's you would have had you'd have been getting soaked most of the time. We had one really good day. We were out Monday and there was fog and stuff like that in the glens, and it was really quite nice. And we took a bit of a drive out and explored an area we hadn't been to I'd never been to actually, so it was kind of good in that. Have you felt that you've had a creativity block at some point? You know, you've kind of mentioned it a few times in your videos, and I think when we were in Iceland, you were kind of talking about it a bit, that it was almost as if you knew a direction that you were wanting to go in, but it wasn't. It was almost as if you weren't quite sure where the path was going to be.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think that that's something that you're resolving, or do you think it's something that's going to take some more sort of paradigm shift to sort of overcome?
I don't know. I mean, I always have creativity blocks. I think it's perfectly normal. Just get tired and start to feel like I'm just repeating myself. A big way to remedy that is what I've done recently by shooting film, because it's basically starting from scratch.
Yeah, that was quite obvious.
Yeah, it's great because you just learn, you're learning new stuff. You see the world in a slightly different way when you shoot film cameras, because you have to observe much more than you do with digital. And that lack of instant feedback is brilliant. So, that gets me excited. But yeah, I mean, I always had this, it was when I was in Nepal last year that I basically said I'm done with massive vistas, because I really wanted to go down the path of creating images with impact that would, that people would look at and be moved by, or at least certainly intrigued by the image, but abstract, wouldn't necessarily know what it is or where it is. So very clean, very minimal, very intimate. But the problem is one, it's very difficult photography to do. You don't get many opportunities, especially in the UK actually, where you can do that. Ideally you go on like a trip to like the Gobi Desert, for example, and that would be perfect. So trying to shift my body of work to that style of photography is hard when I can't only shoot that, if that makes sense. Like I always have this bit of guilt that I have no style, because one time I just want to shoot shapes in the sand, under either low contrast or high contrast, whatever. But then there's this blazing sunset over a mountain valley and I can't not shoot it. I almost feel bad shooting it. And then I think, no, don't feel bad shooting that. Just shoot what you want to shoot. And what will happen is, in theory, my portfolio should just gradually start to lean in the direction that I want it to, rather than an instant shift. So yeah, there was a time where I almost thought about denying myself of certain images. And I thought, I can't do that. So I tend to go to locations now that lend themselves to more abstract, intimate stuff. Like I shot an image in a video last week that was just like a birch tree, but it was close up on the birch tree with all of the yellow medallion leaves just scattered.
I liked it. I like that, and I like the other shot you took in the forest there too. I thought they were both really good.
Yeah, that's great.
And in the video you did before that, the 617, the second shot with the little lochan in the front of it, I really liked that.
Which one was that?
You took the pano camera out, and it was when
the lochan. Well,
yeah,
lock. No, is it Tarn? We're in England. Sorry.
Oh right, yeah, Tarn. That's right.
I was like, was I in Scotland? Yeah, yeah, I liked it at the time when I was shooting it, but I didn't like the image when I got it back. I don't know. That was just a bad day, to be honest.
No, that was quite clear.
But
But the images I thought they were great. I mean, and that's the thing with the 617 is that, you know, because it's such an unusual format, it's one of these formats that's not, it's not an obvious format. And I was always drawn to it because even though at the end of that video you say that you could shoot those with your Canon and do a panel and stuff like that, that's great unless things are moving, and then it just it becomes a pain. So that's the big advantage of the 617, is that you get everything in that one shot.
You know, I'll tell you the best advantage of the 617, and people see it as a negative, but it's really not, right? So one of the comments, or a lot of comments I get, is if I go out with just that camera with one lens and panoramic format, that's all I can shoot. And people say, well, you're going to miss so many shots. I'm like, no, I'm going to see so many more shots. If I go out with this camera, I've got so many opportunities that I'm kind of looking everywhere for images. And yes, there's lots of choice, but going out with only one, one viewpoint, one aspect ratio means that you're going to see images that if you went out with this camera, and you'd never see them ever. Like, you just wouldn't, until you're forced into a situation where you have to look through the eyes, you know, whatever lens or whatever that you've got. That's why I love the square camera. Yeah, I'm just seeing images that I would never see, and it's brilliant. It really is. It's a great way to invigorate perhaps a location that you're bored to death with. So yeah, going out where you're really restricted is just phenomenal.
Yeah, you know, and the opposite is true in the fact that if you've got a bag with a 14 mil, you know, 1424, 2470, or 70 to 200, you know, and you've got 14 mil up to 200 mil, or 400 in my case with the 80 to 400, you know, you've got from 14 mil, in fact, I've got a 12, so 12 to 8 to 400 mil, which is just this massive range, and it can be just as confusing to have too much choice.
Yeah, it can. I mean, it can also be a good thing. There's so many different ways that it can play out. You know, if you're having a once of a lifetime trip somewhere, you kind of want that choice because you don't want to miss anything. But if you're in a bit of a creative slump and you feel like your images are becoming repetitive, maybe go down the other route of really restricting yourself. You just start to see things in a brand new way. It's great. It is great. Yeah.
Well, you know me, it's all about labeling, and it's if you think it's a negative, it's almost guaranteed to turn out as a negative, and if you think it's a positive, you'll go into it with a far more optimistic state of mind. Now, something we've kind of touched on a little bit already, and something I noticed when we were in Iceland is that you're someone who I was just gobsmacked with your activity levels when we were away. The only other person I've been on a trip with who's even close to how productive you are on a trip was Mark Adamus, when him and I were in Tibet together back in 2015, where there's a compliment coming at the end. Well, you know, which is your passion for what you do and delivering a high quality product, both in your images and in your videos and in your books and in your calendar and in just about everything that you do. There's this very strong level of professionalism and perfection that comes through in everything that you do. And I only know a couple of people like that, Mark and Rafael Rojas, who I was speaking to today. And there's just this feeling that you're just on all the time and your energy is on all the time. And I don't know whether it's just me coming up for 54 next month, where I just look at you running around and just think, God, I just don't have that anymore. You know, just that. Do you feel that, is that sustainable for you? Are you going to be?
Yeah, I think it's probably because we were on a trip. That's the thing. It's not always, I'm not always like that, but I'll tell you this, the best days that I ever have, and when I say best days, I don't mean best photography days, I just mean a good day. You wake up, you have a good day, you have a nice coffee, a nice relaxing day. Your mind is carefree, free of any worries, free of any stress. those days only come after I've been productive. So if I go out and shoot a video and I get some nice images and lots of nice videos, it was a hard day in the field. The next day is just bliss. It's bliss. I just take it for myself and just have a really relaxing day of no stress, no anxiety or anything. Those days only come after being productive. So if I'm going to Iceland for 10 days, if I get back home at the end of that trip and I haven't got anything I'm happy with or proud of, or I don't feel like I've tried 100%, it's a dark place to be, you know.
Right.
If it's out of my hands, like a volcano goes off and we can't do it, it's not much of a problem. But if I just know it's because I've been a bit lazy or whatever, then it's bad. And you learn that through experience. Excuse me. So as a result, I tend to be as productive as I possibly can. And it's one of those where the more experience you get, the more you start to realize that, yes, okay, I'm tired now, I'm in bed and it's cold, but in 15 minutes, I'm going to be up and out and on that trail and I'll feel really good. So having that knowledge going forward of, you know, it's like when you go for a run. I never, ever, ever want to go for a run. Ever. But every time I go for a run, I never regret it. I always feel great. Oh, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I did it. So it's the same with these photography trips. And yeah, like as a result, I'm just productive and I'm productive. And I'm just thinking, okay, well, if I could just get this one shot, that'll finish off the video and I'll have another video in the bag. It basically means when I get home, I'm happy. I'm never happy in the moment. That's not true. I'm always focused on whatever I'm doing, but you know, that bliss. And it doesn't last long, you know, a couple of days normally, but yeah, that's why I'm so productive.
Yeah, well, it's very impressive. I mean, I very much enjoyed the Iceland trip, and I didn't really do an awful lot of the sort of filming and stuff like that. But I was really impressed watching you at work, you know, because Adam's kind of laid back and, you know, sort of reluctantly does what he has.
I'll just do a voiceover.
Whereas you're incredibly productive. So as you know, hopefully now with a vaccine coming on the way, and I was speaking again to Raphael this morning, we're kind of almost at the point where we can start thinking that next year, the second half of next year, certainly might be normal-ish. I know that you've got your Antarctica trip has been moved from this year to what, December 21.
Yeah, that was stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this Antarctica trip, man, if it wasn't for this pandemic, wow, it would have been a dream. So we had this. I was with Brendan Van Son, who's a travel photographer, and we've done a few workshops together, and always a great success. And on our Patagonia workshops, we easily have 60 people on the waiting list. It's insane.
Wow.
And we're just like this is like, how can we need to do something bigger, you know? So we thought, well, what if we did a photography conference? And it's like, yeah, that kind of, you know, I don't really fancy a conference center and, you know, just outside of Slough somewhere. And we were like, well, what if we held a conference in somewhere awesome? I was like, yeah, again, it's kind of done, you know, there's a lot of them. And then we had this idea, well, what if we had a conference that was mobile? It's like, oh, now we're talking. And then that leads us onto the cruise ship idea. And I think initially we toyed with the idea of a cruise. You get these relocation cruises where you can get a cruise from Europe to Asia or something. And thought, oh, we could hire out one of those and we could shoot. But then it was like, oh, you know, that sounds tricky. And then we thought, what about Antarctica? And it kind of went from there. We had this idea of this, you know, basically chartering our own boat, bringing on like some awesome photographers, and then, you know, selling spots to guests. And we might have found this great company to work with. They got their own boats, this, that, and the other. And what surprised me was like how relatively, and I have to use this word strongly, relatively cheap it was.
Right.
Like trips to Antarctica are not cheap. They
No.
start at 12, 15, 20 grand. You know, they're expensive. And that's because it's just the end of the world. You know, it's hard to get to. So yeah, we managed to keep the price like basically the same as their standard cruise, but it's a photography conference. So cool. For that, yeah, and then it got not cancelled. It got pushed back, postponed. But the problem with that is we had to change ships. Yeah. So we sold that out. We sold out the conference with 100 guests on board, or 104 guests. And then some people cancelled because they can't do the new date. So we lost a few people that way. And then we got a new ship. But the only other ship we could get is a bigger ship. It's a better ship. It's got a higher ice rating, which means it can go further. It's got a swimming pool, which I thought was pretty cool. I'd like to go to Antarctica. Why not? But it's a lot bigger. I think it holds 130 passengers, something like that. I don't know the exact number. I haven't got them to hand, but bigger. So that's a new challenge of, okay, well, we've got this bigger ship now. We need to run it at capacity for it to be profitable. And so that's now the next challenge is, okay, we've got to sell these extra spaces in a time when nobody wants to travel.
Tough economic climate.
Very tough. And I mean, I've had all my workshops cancelled this year. You have too. So really hoping that we can, get it back up and running again. And I'm confident we will. But man, so many things are out of our control.